From Indonesia to Macedonia and beyond, this is your 10-minute trip through global headlines, and I'm your host, Carl Azuz. Good to see you this Wednesday. International aid worth hundreds of thousands of dollars is making its way to Indonesia. In places like Palu, a city struck by last Friday's earthquake and tsunami, the situation is desperate. Though the official number of those killed in the island country is more than 1,200, officials say many are still missing, and the search for survivors is complicated by blocked roads, piles of rubble, and mudslides. There's reportedly been widespread looting in disaster-stricken areas, some by people looking for groceries, some by people looking to rob houses. Indonesia's government estimates that 2.4 million people have been impacted by the quake and tsunami. 66,000 homes have been destroyed. The Indonesian military and international aid groups are trying to get to those in need, but food and water in some areas are scarce, and shipments from other countries could take days to arrive. Still, the need for help remains. There are a number of churches, charities, and aid groups collecting donations for relief in Indonesia. CNN has a list of some of them and a way you can donate at cnn.com/impact. 10-second trivia. What do Croatia, Macedonia, and Slovenia have in common? Are they all Croatian-speaking nations, former Yugoslav republics, Adriatic border countries, or landlocked? All three of these countries gained their independence from Yugoslavia in 1991. The bordering countries of Macedonia and Greece may be a step closer to resolving a dispute they've had since 1991. Macedonia isn't just the name of a country, it's the name of an ancient kingdom, the birthplace of Alexander the Great. When the Republic of Macedonia was established in 1991, its name angered Greece because Greece has a province named Macedonia, and Greece wants only its province to have that name. This has been such a stumbling block in their relations that Greece has blocked the country of Macedonia from joining international alliances of the European Union and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. But this year, the prime ministers of Greece and Macedonia made an agreement. If the nation of Macedonia votes to change its name to Republic of North Macedonia, it can move toward membership in the EU and NATO. But not everyone in Macedonia wants that. And in the vote held Sunday, there was a complication. More than 91% of the Macedonians who voted said they supported the name change as well as EU and NATO membership. But turnout was low, below 37% of eligible voters, and the government had set the threshold at 50%. Experts say the Macedonian government can still move forward with the changes. There'll just be some controversy to doing that. And this is significant around the world because what happens with the vote could signal whether Macedonia comes under greater European influence or greater Russian influence. Next, science and fashion. The artificial dyes used to make clothing are efficient and cheap. They're commonly seen in fast fashion, inexpensive and trendy clothes worn for a season or two. But it takes a lot of water to process these dyes. It creates a lot of waste, and it can lead to chemicals seeping into the environment. Are bacteria-colored clothes a viable alternative?
What happens when you take a designer and place them within a biological scientific environment, that's when you get a new way of thinking that can catalyze innovation. Bacteria produce pigment. I became very interested with microbes that seep it out because that seemed like a very low-tech way of actually accessing that color. Streptomyces color is an organism that's normally found in the soil. It gives beetroot its flavor. It's the smell of rain just before a thunderstorm and produces this beautiful sky blue pigment. We quickly discovered that it could dye textiles with about 500 times less water than what ordinarily happens in industry. We're at the Department of Biochemical Engineering at University College London. So researchers here are looking at how synthetic biology, the design of living systems, can offer us nature-driven ways of doing the sorts of things that chemicals normally do. Streptomyces color produces color within 7 days. It can ferment in a liquid broth of nutrients, and that's when those cells start to divide. After a certain point, if something is triggered, it starts to produce that pigment. You can grow the organism directly onto the textile, and if you start to direct where those organisms are, you can start to design patterns and prints to start to design with biology in quite a compelling way. We can create a range of different colors by tweaking the pH. Low pH results in more blue colors towards the purple spectrum, and something that's a slightly higher pH is going to deliver bright, vibrant pinks and even reds. I think what's so fascinating about textiles is that they have always been artifacts that are sort of beyond this material that might look nice. They tell us about where we are with our technology. If we look at what knitting was in the 1900s compared to what you can do now with 3D forms, massive leaps have happened. There are new spaces opening up for designers to invite this interdisciplinary sharing of ideas. I think that's where creativity has an amazing space to expand.
Roughly 4 hours. That's an average time it takes many golfers to play a round of 18 holes. Ashley Storr recently took on 100. And the reason why she did that is what makes her more than an athlete, it's what makes her a positive athlete. Part of our ongoing series on high school students overcoming the odds, or in this case, taking a swing at helping others.
I've been playing golf since I was really little, but competitively for like 3 years.
Golf is a part of her life, it's not her whole life. Even though there's a competitiveness inside of her that she's really wanting to play well and wanting to beat other people, she is the first one to volunteer to help someone if they need some type of help.
It is a storm for the record books. Harvey living up to all the fears and the predictions by bringing catastrophic flooding to parts of Texas, including the nation's fourth largest city of Houston.
Shortly after the hurricane passed through, our neighborhood actually started taking on water, and a lot of our neighbors ended up losing a lot of their homes and their possessions. When we saw that, we thought, man, if the water keeps coming, that could be us next. So we made the decision to evacuate and move to San Antonio.
It was so hectic. Like, we left to get away from all the floodwaters. It was crazy just to see the damage that was caused by it.
We were sitting in a parking lot of a grocery store over in San Antonio picking up some supplies, and we got an email from the AJGA talking about one of their organizations that they've established called Leadership Links. The first idea Ashley had was, hey, maybe I can use this as a way to raise some money and do something while we're stuck over here in San Antonio.
I knew I couldn't do anything physically to help. I felt so good knowing that my fundraiser was going to help the people that got affected by the hurricane.
Knowing that she was being able to put something together that was going to help a number of people along the Houston area, the greater Houston area, through that project was really satisfying.
When I started my fundraising event, I wanted to try to play as many holes of golf as I could in one day. Basically, I was asking people for pledges for every hole I played or a one-time donation. I played 100 holes of golf, and it took me around 13 hours. I've had around 200 people donated to my charity, and I ended up raising a little over $15,000.
That's awesome.
It was eye-opening for not only Ashley, but everybody in our family to see what, one little simple idea and how much support you can get from people all over the country.
She's a shining light. She's going to be around helping people for the rest of her life.
I can just see the growth in the community from something so negative because everyone's come together. It's just so cool.
It's one thing for me to say, Underwater Maritime Heritage Cultural Trail. It's easier to understand when you see it. In California's Lake Tahoe, a whole bunch of boats, launches, and barges used in the early 1900s were intentionally sunk in the mid-1900s when they were no longer useful. Now, a dive site's been opened so people can explore them underwater and read about them on markers provided in the trail. So if you're bubbling with curiosity and you like diving into history, it'll probably float your boat to launch your knowledge by taking the plunge and going beneath the surface to barge in on some sunken relics. They'll show you what Tahoe's past is all about. I'm Carl Azuz, and that's CNN 10.